Bitcoiners are going to be the richest people on planet Earth, and you're going to have connections to those people because you do business with them. So when I went to my barber and paid in Bitcoin for the first time, I paid whatever's 20 or 30 bucks for
Bitcoin.
Yeah, 3 Bitcoin. But then he turned around, he actually bought 5 of my books from me for $100.
The government encourages you to stack this money for retirement, and now they're coming into the very end and say, actually, we need some of that now. And this is part of the reason why a lot of people are now thinking, we need to get out of here, because where does it end?
If somebody is going to leave, I think it's really important to leave loud and to let people know that you're taking a lot of money with you. Bitcoin is the Coca-Cola of the digital world.
What advice do you have for parents who want to raise financially sovereign and Bitcoin literate young men and women?
Supposedly,
I'm Matthew Fraser, and this is Crypto Collective. After making millions with Amazon and e-commerce, I realized that if I was starting again today, crypto would be my first choice. I'm here to help you take your first steps and build real wealth. Ready to set yourself up for life? Let's go. Today's guest is Brian DeMint, author of best-selling books Bitcoin Evangelism and Parallel, a leading voice in the world of Bitcoin. We dive into why digital money was always inevitable and to why hodling might not be the move. Let's jump in.
I got my hydration drink, my electrolytes, so I'll be good to go. But yeah, next time if I'm going to be dehydrated anyways, I might just be on the mats.
Yeah, exactly. You might as well do that. I've actually done some Kyokushin karate in my time. I've been about 10 years doing that. So I think there's certainly a synergy there in, I think, the Bitcoin movement, martial arts, discipline. I think there's something that's, I think, brings that together. Yeah,
no doubt. I was just at that. I don't know, kind of rapping, but there was a lot of that. I was at the Bitcoin conference in Vegas. Did you go to that? Did you happen to make it out to Las Vegas last month?
No, last time I was in Vegas, I was nothing for Bitcoin.
Yeah. Well, and that's the funny thing was that it was, half the conference I'm talking to guys about health and martial arts and fitness and those, it's all these Bitcoiners, but that's kind of the fun thing that you get to talk about because you know that there's all these branches and that sort of thing where like it's so funny because it's the last thing you think you'd be talking about in Las Vegas is health and taking care of yourself when everybody there is just like a wreck. You walk through the casinos and it's a little sad and depressing, but yeah, it was good.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I've taken steps, I guess, in my life. I'm in my mid 40s now, and I think the Bitcoin journey helped me also to obviously understanding money, and the broken money, and also from a holistic level of health, freedom, as well is become a really big thing for me right now. And I'm happy to talk about that as well. And so I guess, and so my wife and I are on this journey now. Like she's now started going to the gym. Like I'm going to the gym like 4 days a week. She's now going to the gym too. Just things like this, right? Because we're thinking about the future and I guess having the best life possible, which combines with, the Bitcoin ethos.
Yeah, no doubt. I get asked that question a lot. It's like, why are Bitcoiners so into health and wellness and, why do they read so much and that sort of thing? It's like, I think the common thread is, and it's not that everybody goes from Bitcoin into health. Some, my wife she was the opposite. She was very holistic and healthy. And we recognized that at a certain point years ago, probably 8 or 10 years ago, the health podcast that she would listen to or she would watch, we would like, for whatever reason, every once in a while there'd be a Bitcoiner on there. And it was vice versa. On the Bitcoin podcast, there would be somebody talking about health. And we're like, oh, it's weird that there's a cross-pollination between these two. But I think it's that underlying principle of in first principles, you ask, what's in my and fill in the blank. So what's in my food? If you ask that question, what's in my food or what am I doing with my body or those types of things, you tend to ask what's in my money or how does my money work? And so you tend to be that type of inquisitive person who is willing to dig a little bit deeper. And so that's, to me, that's the common thread. And that's why we arrive at these same things. We're truth seekers, or we're people, it's not just truth seeking, but it's people that are willing to dig and be uncomfortable and kind of be wrong for a little bit, and then hopefully refine that. And it's almost the scientific method, but in real life, practical approach to truth seeking.
Yeah, that's so true. I love that truth seeking because I think another dynamic to this was which sort of sprouted during COVID. That was the lockdowns. I mean, we had one of the, in our, I don't know if you know, but in Australia, in the state of Victoria, was the longest lockdown in all of the world. Right? They locked that place down.
Wow.
And And I think it was that moment too that also opened my eyes to government overreach, government control, not listening to the mainstream narrative. This all blended into then finding Bitcoin, realizing that the money system was broken, not trusting what was just being sprouted through mainstream media. And so that was, I guess, my shift, which is now transgressed right into more from a freedom side of things. Let me ask you this though, because I mean, I've been to America a few times, and I love the country. I absolutely love it. There's a big shift in Australia right now of moving out of Australia because we've got this big tax regime. Now, you've got a president now who is talking about obviously no tax on tips. That was the big one that's just gone through, right? No tax on tips. But also not taxing crypto or Bitcoin, like no capital gains tax, things like that.
Right.
So is there a movement in America for people who are thinking we want to get out of America, or is it just how I feel like people in Australia who feel like they're overtaxed and they want their governments to do something about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of the nice things of the way that the United States is set up. I live in California, and so people commonly call it California. It's amongst the United States, California and New York, the two coasts. With the two largest cities. New York's the biggest city in the United States, and LA, close to where I'm at, is the second biggest city. I mean, you're talking about population densities of millions and tens of millions of people in these cities, and so they tend to outvote the rest of the state. If you were to look at a map of California, it's almost all red. It's almost all Republican, but it's a Republican's probably not going to win an election here in any of the next coming cycles. I mean, it's just very unlikely. And the reason being is because these cities, these densely populated areas, just outweigh the rest of the state in terms of how much vote and swing they have. I mean, we have super majorities of Democrats here, which, again, Democrats for the international audience, the Democrats are the party of collectivism. Republicans aren't immune to collectivism, but still we tend to, the Republican side tends to be a little bit more individualistic. And all that to say is, I don't think that so many people are looking to move out of the United States as they are, we see this a lot, people looking to move out of California. It's kind of the brilliance of the way that the United States was formed is that if you don't like legislation in one place, then there's very different legislation in a different state. Because of the separation of powers of states, the separation between the federal government and the power of the states have a lot of power. Basically, for anybody that doesn't know, if something is not outlined, if a power is not given to the federal government in our Constitution, if it's just not mentioned, that power automatically goes to the state. So everything that's not mentioned in the Constitution goes to the state. So the states actually have quite a bit of legislative authority. And so if you go, or if you're somebody that's very conservative and you don't like the tax burden that is here in California, or, people have heard about in California, if you leave your Bitcoin or crypto on exchanges, it can get seized here. I don't know if you've seen that. I don't think that's entirely true. I think that's probably a little overblown because there's more details to that. It's not as simple as them just going in and taking it. That principle still holds true. You should probably hold the keys to your wallets.
Get it off the exchange.
Just get off the exchange anyways.
Yeah,
that's the lesson there. All that to say is if you don't like those policies, it's very easy. I've had family that's moved to Arizona, which is one state over from where we're at. You can get there in 4 hours by driving. And there's really nice areas there as well. So, and it's a completely different type of government, form of government, but in terms of politics in that place. And so, yes, I run a chain of wellness studios out here. The number one reason that people cancel is because they're moving out of state. And so it's just something that we fight as entrepreneurs. I have a kind of a philosophy that we don't need to go in necessarily unless you care, but there's a reason I think that some people decide to stay in these areas. And I don't know if maybe you're the same way, but I think that there's a fight to be had. And if we constantly are moving away from policy we don't like, then we're conceding ground. And so I'm a big fan of being willing to die on hills and saying, you know what, no, I don't want the Overton window to get shifted so far beyond. And maybe there's a time where my family needs to get up and move to a different state, or maybe the United States becomes so bad. I mean, that was a lot of talk during COVID under the Biden administration. A lot of conservatives will, where am I going to go? I'm going to try and go, maybe we'll move to El Salvador, that type of thing. But I think that we're placed here for such a time as this to be in it. Thankfully, our forefathers fought revolutions. They had to go out on, load up a musket and go out on a battlefield. We get to have a peaceful revolution where we have tools, we have money, we have the internet, we have social networks of people, like not just like social networks like Facebook, but like actual social person-to-person networks of what we're doing right now. We're forming something that no generation in history had the ability to do what we're doing right now and come together as a freely associating collective, which is very different than a government collective. And so we have a very powerful movement to shift things, and it just takes brave men and women that are willing to do that. So if somebody wants to move because it's not the right fit for their family, I don't begrudge them. I think that that's for some people in certain times and places. I've had friends that were very deep into the political fights here in California, but they were getting threats. They were getting physical, and they have young kids. I get it. If that's the case, then maybe you need to do what's right for your family. But it's not a decision that I take lightly. I think that that's something that's probably on my mind pretty constantly, which is a great question that you brought up to kick off the show. That's why I talked on it for so long.
Yeah. Well, so basically what you're saying is you fundamentally believe in, obviously, the United States and the principles and the values of what it was founded upon, because you have obviously the rights there. We don't have a rights bills and things like this. We just have we just don't have that. So, but you've made this, I guess, this stand to say, look, I'm going to stay here, because I've got friends who have one's recently moved to Cyprus, who's a big Bitcoiner now, and has quite a large sum of money. It's like, you know what, I'm getting taxed the bejesus out of here in Australia. Why am I going to stay here and just put up with it? I'm going to go where I'm treated better. And it turns out that obviously Cyprus is one. I mean, you even just saw, Brian, last year, 2024, 10,000 people now reportedly moved out of the UK. Took their money and just left and said, we're out of here. Yeah. And that was because the left-wing government there just changed the rules and said, we're just going to tax you more now. It was actually more about taxing income overseas that wasn't produced in the country. So we're going to tax the whole lot. Wow. So they're like, we're going to, and most of them went to Dubai.
Sure. And Dubai's happy to have them.
Dubai's happy to have him. Yep. So I'm in this sort of battle right now. It's like, one side of me wants to stay and fight in Australia. The other side's like, you know what, I'm just going to go out and just not pay capital gains tax on anything, outside of that. I want to shift it, Brian, to, I'm going to have to bring up the book, Bitcoin Evangelism, the book that everybody must have. I know you wrote this a couple of years ago now, but I don't think you can stop talking about it, to be honest. You're probably sick of talking about it, but it is such a great book. And it's one of these books that I'm always pushing to people, because I have read, of course, the other one that's here, which is the Bitcoin Standard, which I'm sure you love as well.
Yep.
This one, though, I found personally, I think, first of all, when you start talking about jiu-jitsu, and I was like, this guy's real. He's telling a story about his growth, his understanding of Bitcoin, and weaves it into his life story. And I found that really powerful. And so this is why I sort of tell people, look, the Bitcoin Standard's good, but start with Bitcoin evangelism, right? This will help you every single time. To Orange Pill people, I wanted to just open up to this part here in the book, which is this part here where you've got this picture of a newspaper article, and it says, internet may be just a passing fad as millions give up on it, right? Which I think is just brilliant. You just add that in there. So tell me, because this comes up a lot, Brian, where this is going to lead to, which is Bitcoin just a fad? And where is it leading to?
I love that picture. I was like, that was probably one of the first things that I had in my mind as I was framing the book. I was like, how do I fit this newspaper clipping, which many Bitcoiners have seen before, but it's something that if somebody's going on their Bitcoin journey and they haven't seen that, it's really important, because I think if not, we can think that Bitcoin is just another technology. One of the frequently asked questions that I have in the back is, and I think this is kind of that same question, is will Bitcoin just be usurped? Will it be like the MySpace getting passed up by Facebook? I mean, that's a really
Right.
good question. I think it's a very fair question, and you can give a variety of answers. That one, Bitcoin's not a or it's not a company; it's a protocol. So it's like comparing apples and oranges. That's why the internet comparison right there is much more apt. When we tried to improve the internet, we didn't create a new version of the internet. We took the original chain of the internet, and we take HTTP protocol. And if we wanted email, we just added SMTP protocol towards it. Or if we wanted video, we added protocol toward it, and we stacked on top of that. And so that's the internet is a much better example, and that's what we tend to do. And the reason why we do that is because things have network effects, and the hardest thing to build is a network effect. So the reason why we didn't, when the internet was in its infancy and 5 years or 6 years had passed and people had started building on top of it, we didn't come along and say, you know what, we need a faster internet, or we need a different internet, or it needs to have more functionality, so let's build a different version of it. The reason why we didn't do that is because you would be starting over, and you would have no users. So you would have a network that has no users, which is inherently valueless. And so when you have the network effect of Bitcoin, it's there's no precedent in history of something like this being unwound. We use the term escape velocity, that Bitcoin has this escape velocity for which you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. When society first discovered, this is Safedine uses this example all the time. When society discovers or develops gunpowder, that technology, that leap forward in technology, you cannot go backwards, because if you go backwards, you could say in our society, we're not going to ever use gunpowder. Well, guess what? You're going to get conquered by somebody who uses gunpowder. So your society will end up using gunpowder. Your people are all going to be dead, but the people who will use gunpowder are going to come along and conquer you. It's the same thing with fire. The people who said, the Neanderthal that discovered fire. Well, guess what? There might have been another tribe somewhere that says, well, I don't want to use fire. Well, that's fine. But unfortunately, that guy does not make it to the next phase of history, because he's going to eat meat that isn't cooked, and he's going to get sick, and he doesn't know how to stay warm, and he doesn't know how to use that that discovery that came along. And Bitcoin's essentially the same thing. I mean, there's virtually no difference. It's a discovering something. That's why we like to say that Bitcoin is actually a discovery and not an invention. The internet was the discovery of how to connect people electronically. And once we discovered how to connect people electronically, we just call that the internet. It was going to happen at some point, because humans were eventually going to figure out how to harness electricity in a way that we could talk over the internet. So whatever that was eventually going to come, because it exists in the physical universe, our ability to tap into that reality. Bitcoin is that same thing, but for money. We found a way, the first time since the electrical age, since the digital age came along, we found a way to digitally cap something. And that is the profound discovery of Bitcoin. You could never have digital money until Bitcoin. So, whenever you would say like the electrical revolution came online, say the early 1900s to 2009, we could never have a truly digital monetary system, because anytime we were going to go over to purely digital money, there was always a way for people to reproduce it. Digital things could always be reproduced. That's why when Napster and LimeWire came along back in the late 90s, early 2000s, the music industry was destroyed, because before that you had analog, and analog CDs were a way for the music industry to keep music valuable, because you needed to have the physical thing in order to listen to it. So somebody had to pay you money for it. But once music went to MP3, you could just copy and paste it endlessly. So music for a short period of time lost value. That same thing would have happened with money. If anybody could just create money out of thin air, you wouldn't just have a Federal Reserve or a central bank. You would have millions of central banks, and everybody would be their own central bank if you could do that. Bitcoin was the discovery that humanity made of, this is how we finally cap digital things. 21 million, brilliant. Okay, now let's move on to the next phase. How do we integrate this into society?
Well, I've got to put my hand up, Brian. I'm just going to show my age now. I still have a CD collection.
Do you have the old stacks, like where you can
I've
see
got
them all?
bookshelves of
Yeah.
them.
Are they organized or are they not?
Yeah, no, they're super
Okay,
organized.
I was gonna say if you're a real collector, I'm sure it's very organized. I know when I was a kid, my CD collection, it would take me 15 minutes to find what I wanted to listen to, though.
Yeah, I've got a lot of pride in my CD collection, to be honest. This episode is brought to you by CoinStash, the crypto platform I use for my SMSF. End of financial year is the perfect time to simplify your crypto super. CoinStash offers same-day setup, Aussie-based support, and access to Bitcoin and over 1,000 digital assets. Right now, CoinStash is offering up to $200 in Bitcoin when you make the switch and make a deposit before end of financial year. It's simple, compliant, and 100% Australian owned and operated. Hit the link in the show notes and book your free call with the CoinStash SMSF team today. Back to the episode. But let me ask you, Brian, so as a true Bitcoin, and you now have these health wellness stores, right? Is that what they call it? Are they stores? Like you go and buy things, like you selling like protein powders and things?
No,
or what is it?
so what we specialize in, it's services. So we call them studios or wellness centers, whatever you want to call them. But we just do cold plunges, salt therapy, which is you just breathe in salty air. This stuff's fantastic. If you haven't heard of it, look in. I tell people all the time, just Google halo therapy. Halo is like Latin or Greek for salt. I forget. I should probably know that. And then we do red light therapy. We do infrared saunas. We do vitamin D sunbeds, which integrate red light therapy and UV lamps to stimulate vitamin D. And I don't know if I mentioned cold plunges, but yeah, so we're essentially recreating. If you were to go to the beach, the elements that you're going to get, because from sunshine we get
in California, where you've got a great beach.
And that's the funny thing is that people ask all the time. It's like, well, we're 50 miles from the beach, and why would you do that? It's like, well, because you actually need to kind of expose regularly to these things. And in California, everybody's working 2 jobs, and people are overworked, and so being able to come in and have a controlled environment for that is actually
Brian. I'd come in because I don't want to get sandy.
Yeah,
that's the thing. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that sand. So my question then is, like, you've got these businesses. So are you accepting Bitcoin as payment?
We do. And quite frankly, very few people spend Bitcoin. Aside from people on Orange Pill app, which Orange Pill app is kind of like the diehard Bitcoiners, and we have our business listed on there. Yeah, I mean, that's essentially, if an Orange Pill app user comes in, they're probably going to pay in Bitcoin. Outside of that, very few people use it. Even our guests or members that have Bitcoin tend to be people who don't spend it. I'm a huge advocate. I know you've read Bitcoin Evangelism. I don't know if you've had a chance yet to read my second book called Parallel, but Parallel is my case for why we should be spending Bitcoin, which is, I that's the most pushback. Bitcoiners have always been very gracious to me on Twitter, but when I wrote Parallel and I started advocating for spending Bitcoin, that was like touching a third rail that really, I think, pissed a lot of people off. Right. because we have this ingrained into us, this hodl mentality, and I'm a big fan of hodling, but I also think that there's something to be said about finding a constructive way to spend your Bitcoin and participate in the economy. If I could give my quick elevator pitch for why, is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Do it.
The people who've benefited from Bitcoin the most are the people who look to the next phase. They don't think about the phase we're in. They look to the next phase. And so money gets adopted in 4 distinct phases. This is true for gold, for any type of monetary element that we've used that has been widely adopted. It starts off as a novelty, or like a collectible. It then goes into the store of value phase. From the store of value phase, it goes into the medium of exchange phase. From the medium of exchange, it goes into unit of account. So think about this. Go back to gold. In early Egyptian society, before gold was monetary or store of value, somebody found these shiny gold rocks and they just thought they were cool. Maybe they gave one to their girlfriend. Maybe they kept one because it was fun to look at. But then as enough time went on, people noticed that other people were collecting those shiny gold rocks. And so they said, hey, there's something here. Then that's why it transfers into a store of value phase, because somebody at some point said, you know what, can I buy that from you? I want one of those too. And all of a sudden people realized that, like, oh, other people want these, so I can actually store my value in them. That's, a very rudimentary way to think of it, but then it goes into the store of value phase. We're clearly in the store of value phase for Bitcoin right now. The collectible phase was 10,000 Bitcoins for 2 pizzas, right? Like that was the, nobody knows what they're valued at. You could go to, bitcoinfaucet.com. I don't know if you ever did that back in the day, but I never did, unfortunately. There was a website where you could once a day solve a CAPTCHA just to prove you're a real person, click a button and get 5 Bitcoin. You could go back to the website
Wow.
every single day and do it. That's the collectible phase.
Who closed that down?
Yeah, yeah. Go to my website, bitcoinevangelism.com. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's not there. Unfortunately, it's not there anymore. But think about it. That's like you're talking about $500,000 every day you could harvest. That was clearly the collectible phase. So the people who looked at Bitcoin back then as a store of value, they looked one phase ahead. Those are the people who hold 10,000 Bitcoin. Those are the people that hold 5,000 Bitcoin, 500 Bitcoin. They have astronomical amounts of wealth because during the collectible phase, and Satoshi, guys like Hal Finney was calling for $10 million Bitcoin back in the day. These guys, even in the collectible phase, they understood that it could be a store of value. They just looked one phase ahead. Now we're in the store of value phase. Well, what's the next phase of money adoption? It's medium of exchange. It's the exchange of Bitcoin. Well, people say all the time, well, going from collectible to store of value, it was easy to capitalize on that because you just needed to hold it, right? If you hodled, then you would be able to capitalize on it. You're asking me to participate in medium of exchange. That means I'm supposed to spend my Bitcoin. How is spending my Bitcoin actually benefiting me? Well, let me give you this example. It's like, who were the people that got wealthy from the internet? There was people who got rich from the internet, guys that day traded or bought and hodled for a little while domain names. They bought like business.com or pets.com or a .com. They held it for a few years and then sold it for $10 million or $15 million. Those guys got rich. But who got vastly wealthy? It's the guys who built and participated in the building of the internet economy. You're talking about Bezos. You're talking about Musk, the payment rails for those guys that didn't see it for like, oh, I could buy a domain and sell it later for a little bit more money. I want to participate in the building of this economy. Those guys got vastly wealthy. I mean, they shoot rockets into space for fun. Like they have that kind of money at this point because they looked ahead one phase. And so for the Bitcoiner today, how do you capitalize on the parallel economy? Well, I'll tell you what, in your fiat economy, we tend to spend less. Hopefully, if you're doing it right, you spend less than you take in. So if you're providing a good or service to the Bitcoin economy and you're spending in the Bitcoin economy, you should be accruing more sats through the interaction of it. I know it feels like you're going to be losing sats by spending them, but every time you spend Bitcoin somewhere, you've just made a social connection with somebody who also spends Bitcoin. So when I went to my barber and paid in Bitcoin for the first time, I paid whatever's 20 or 30 bucks for
Bitcoin.
Yeah, 3 Bitcoin. I paid 20 or $30 in Bitcoin. But then he turned around, he actually bought 5 of my books from me for $100 because he thought, you know what? I want to give these to my friends and family. And so by me spending Bitcoin, I can't predict that that's how it's going to manifest itself, but you will build economic connections. And guess what? 5 years from now, 10 years from now, do you think you're going to want to have economic connections with other people who hold Bitcoin? Bitcoiners are going to be the richest people on planet Earth. And you're going to have connections to those people because you do business with them. I want to do business with the people who have the biggest and best, most pure form of buying power on planet Earth. So that's what I'm spending my time doing, is trying to develop those types of economic connections. I believe that is going to bear fruit because we're looking one step ahead. And I suggest that other Bitcoiners do that. They don't have to do it at scale. They don't have to spend thousands of dollars a month. Buy $100 a month of extra Bitcoin and spend that Bitcoin, right? It doesn't need to come out of your stash.
Let me ask you this, Brian, because in my case, I've gone, well, I wear a Bitcoin hat, for God's sake. And even out in public, right? And it's true, I do. I wear a Bitcoin hat all the time. But what I'm doing is, I started buying up Bitcoin in my personal name. I then started allocating my company funds to Bitcoin. And then a couple of years into that, I'm like, what else can I allocate to Bitcoin? And I allocated all of my, what's called in Australia, a superannuation account, sorry, a 401k basically. All of that just went boom into Bitcoin. And then now I'm you hear the term now, you'll own nothing and be happy. I'm actually kind of falling into that. I'm actually dematerializing now. I'm like selling properties. I had a car collection. I had like 7 cars in this shed. that I collected, my dreams, and I'm down to 2 of those now because and one, they're going. And I feel like I'm moving to this phase of owning nothing except for Bitcoin and being happy. So in your eyes, Brian, considering what you just said, am I doing the right thing? I am hodling. I haven't actually spent any of this Bitcoin. I'm just stacking Bitcoin and turning everything that's not pinned down into Bitcoin.
Yeah, I don't think there's clearly nothing wrong from a Bitcoin perspective with what you're doing. I mean, you're going to outpace most of humanity by doing that. I just think that there's alpha to be had in Bitcoin. So the reason why I'm a big advocate for this too is because I think a lot of people look at Bitcoin and they say, I've missed the boat with Bitcoin. There's no alpha there. So I will therefore go to crypto. Like crypto is where I'm going to get my alpha out of it. And I don't think that that's the answer. I think getting the alpha from Bitcoin is stacking every sat you possibly can, but there inevitably will be money that you need to buy groceries. You need to buy, again, you need to get a haircut. If you need to hire a plumber, there's probably a plumber near you that will accept Bitcoin. And so if you can then instead just say, you know what, I'm going to buy the Bitcoin I need to pay this plumber in Bitcoin. It seems kind of silly almost to do that. I'm telling you, you're creating economic connections. You're stimulating a parallel or a circular economy in your area, which one gives you an off ramp. If things ever get crazy in Australia, but Matthew knows all of the guys who sell meat directly to you and you don't want to feed your family bug protein, you have an economic connection that cannot be censored. So there's also insurance right there. So I just think it covers so many bases. But yeah, I mean, to your point, to your question, no, there's clearly nothing you're doing wrong, but there could be alpha there. And one, I mean, it's even giving guys access to you. Matthew came and he got a haircut from me. He bought plumbing services or my IT services, or maybe people that work in your studio, maybe they get paid in Bitcoin. It's giving you kind of get to know who the real ones are. If you're an influence in this space, there's going to be lots of good and genuine people in the space, and there's going to be a lot of people who are just trying to suck value out of the space and not provide anything very good. And so I think that it's a filter for you. I think Bitcoin acts as a really good filter. And so that would be my suggestion. No, I mean, I don't think your family's going to be bummed out that you've taken the approach.
I was hoping you were going to say, Brian, go and talk to your wife and your family, say you're not stacking enough.
Why do you have a microphone right there? You shouldn't even have a chair. You shouldn't have a microphone. We should be talking by tin cans through a string because we don't have any money left. Yeah.
Let me ask you this then, because I'm dying to know, someone of your caliber and status within the Bitcoin community. What do you currently do? Do you continually stack more Bitcoin even now? Like, do you just DCA just for the fun of it, or are you dematerializing properties and things like that?
For the most part, my investment portfolio goes like this. It's 100% Bitcoin and my companies. That's literally, or my house. House and a few cars. That's about it. Everything goes into those things. The bet in my life is on Bitcoin and my companies. My companies, that is how I stack. Personally, we do some mining. I go through SAS Mining, who's like a hosted mining service.
Right.
Awesome. We get really cheap electricity because we have a hydroelectric dam and they take care of my stuff. I love that.
Do they do pools there?
They do.
Have
It's pool mining. Yeah. So it's all from that facility. We all work together. And I've been doing that for a couple of years. The sats that I've mined through them has appreciated tremendously, and I love the fact that they're just KYC free sats. They're the only ones that I stack that again are KYC free. Everything else I'm buying is through an exchange somewhere, and so there's a paper trail. But
can I just stop you there,
Brian?
Ahead. Because I just want to just talk about this, because I also do Bitcoin mining. I've got a couple of pools I'm involved in, one out of Norway, one out of Ethiopia, right? And I just keep going up more, spending more on mining machines and having them in the pool. But I think you just touched on something really important, which is it's non-KYC Bitcoin into, I run my own node as well. So I'm basically my own sovereign bank.
Excellent.
Right. And I think that is the ultimate power.
Yes.
Get up and walk away and just go to another jurisdiction if you want to. why do you think, if you can just explain it a bit more to maybe other people of why this Bitcoin mining thing is so important rather than just buying more from an exchange?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think there's probably things, there's a case to be made that we could devote a whole episode to it. But it
Yes.
is, it's almost like, if you live in a representative democracy and you choose not to vote, well, you can still live there and you can still participate in the society, but you're forfeiting one of the rights that you have to hopefully help make your society better. If your vote would help make your society better and you're not doing that, it's just something you're choosing not to do. I would say that Bitcoin mining is kind of like that. One, we're just taking the reward out of it. I'm not even talking about that portion. The fact that you can contribute, one, like you said, not talking about mining, but running your own node, that's one element that helps secure Bitcoin. It secures yourself. I love the fact that there's independent people who run their own node because, again, it deters threats to the network because there's just no point to attack Bitcoin because every one of us has our own node. So what are you going to do? You're going to hack me. You're going to hack Matthew. Like, you're not going to do all that at scale. The other element is the hash rate of the Bitcoin mining network. The more computers that are plugged into that network, it increases the difficulty. And again, it makes it less likely. I mean, back in the day, if you went back 10 or 15 years ago, maybe the incentive was for big publicly traded companies to try and attack the Bitcoin network, and it would have been too big for them, but maybe they were tempted to do it. Now the scale that Bitcoin's at, the amount of money, I'm talking about the amount of money that's in there, it's enticing perhaps for a giant country to say, can we take over that network and steal all of that money? Well, guess what? Because of the incentive structures for Bitcoin mining, and because you and I benefit by plugging our computers in and adding to the power of the network, the hash rate or the computing power of the network, it's so massively gigantic that no country or no union of several countries together could hack the Bitcoin network. And so the reason why our Bitcoin is so safe is because we do this. And we don't just do it because we want it to be safe, but we do it because we financially benefit from it. And in doing so, the sats that I mine or you mine directly from our pool go directly into our own wallets, which are, so hopefully secured and safe, and there's no record of it. So I think that's, again, one more element of security that bad actors, foreign governments, whatever, they can't just go and hack exchanges. They can't just go, they have to hack millions of wallets around the world, millions of computers that just can't be done at scale. And even if they don't, if there's one termite left, if there's one cockroach node left, Bitcoin remains and goes on, and then it repropagates. So it's so difficult to destroy Bitcoin that it makes it so safe. It's the biggest dog on the street, so no dogs mess with it.
I think if anyone is against the current government, certainly in Australia, we have I call them a radical left-wing extremist government. Some might say they're centrist, right? I don't think that's the case. So they're trying to bring in right now, Brian, you won't follow this, but we follow a lot of US news. You wouldn't see anything of what's happening in Australia. But basically our Prime Minister can't get a meeting with Trump. That's how much Trump loves him. Wow. But there's also, our Prime Minister's been on record after the first term of Trump, he was saying some nasty things about Trump, as a lot of political people did after the first term, thinking we'd never see him again. Right. We'll just say he's an idiot and everything. And Trump, the great thing about Trump, and I love Trump, the great thing about Trump, he never forgets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
and he's a spiteful guy.
Yeah, exactly. Especially on Twitter. So our government right now is trying to bring in this unrealized capital gains tax. Can you believe it?
I did see that, and I thought it was
it's
fake.
True.
I thought there's no way. Nobody would be foolish enough to do that.
No, this is how crazy these people are on retirement savings. That's what they're trying to bring it. So the government encourages you to stack this money for retirement, and now they're coming in at the very end and say, actually, we need some of that now, right? And so I've been doing a lot of videos about it, and I can't stand it. And this is part of the reason why a lot of people are now thinking, we need to get out of here, because where does it end, Brian? Because it could be unrealized capital gains on super. And of course, what's in my super right now? Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right? So I see it as the government is now trying to steal my Bitcoin through legislation, legalized theft. And so anyway, so I think this is coming back to the mining. This is why the mining is so powerful, because one of the things you said before, it's not controlled, and also it doesn't go through an exchange, and you can sort of walk off with it and say goodbye to the government.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's basically what I love.
yeah, it's freedom that you have at your fingertips, and sadly, many people around the world who could use that freedom don't know about it. But going back to like our earlier point about whether people should leave or not, and I said, oh, I'm staying where I'm at. If somebody is going to leave, or if I ever do leave California, I think it's really important to leave loud and to let people know that you're taking a lot of money with you. I mean, I think that's important because that is a vote, right? Like on the way out, I'm going to do the best thing you can do for your brothers and sisters that still live in Australia is to tell your government that, see you later, the hot chicks leaving the dance. I'm not going to be here anymore for you to tax me. And so I'm one of the guys you need to be taxing in order to make this thing work, and we're taking this elsewhere. We're going to greener pastures, and that is a vote against the totalitarianism or the overreach of whatever your government's doing. So yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with leaving, but if you do, maybe toss everybody
Throw
a lifeline.
grenades.
Yeah.
You want to implode this, Brian? We're going to run out of time soon, but I want to jump to these because I've got a small online community. I help people transition from traditional superannuation and allocate their funds to Bitcoin within the superannuation space. So I just help people guide them through that, and I'm always talking about your books heavily.
Thank you.
Right, so I love it, and I really appreciate it. So if you don't mind, I've just got a few questions, 5 questions that the members in the group wanted to ask you.
Beautiful.
Would that be okay?
I would love it.
So the first one is, as a Bitcoin evangelist, if you had 5 minutes with the likes of Warren Buffett and Peter Schiff or Bill Gates, what would be the key points to raise, or would you just rather not bother if trying to convince them to allocate to Bitcoin?
I mean, each one of those guys. Who was the third one? Was it Bill Gates? Is that the third?
You got Peter Schiff, Buffett and Gates.
Okay. I mean, they're all wildly different perspectives that I would take. And I even say this as a Bitcoin evangelist. These guys, we kind of know their responses, so maybe you don't have to ask questions. But if you do have friends in your life, and I'm speaking to your community here, if you have people who are asking you to explain Bitcoin, you've got to ask questions first because you've got to know what to answer for them. If I'm talking to a gold bug, which Warren Buffett certainly is not, but if I'm talking to a gold bug, I'm not talking about censorship resistance and hash power and all these things. I'm talking about 21 million and digital scarcity, because gold bugs care about scarcity and hard money. So I'm talking about Bitcoin as hard money. I'm being very specific. We get so excited that when somebody talks to us about Bitcoin, that we just give them everything we know about Bitcoin as a fire hose. So for Warren Buffett, I
lose a lot of friends. Avoid that guy.
Yeah. And so for Warren Buffett, his favorite investment of all time is Coca-Cola. So how can I make the case that Bitcoin is Coca-Cola? Well, Bitcoin versus Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola's biggest competitor ever was Pepsi. In side-by-side taste tests forever, Pepsi always won. Well, why did Warren Buffett invest in Coca-Cola? It's because they had distribution. He always talks about distribution. And if Pepsi could never capture Coke's market cap because they had the network effect. We always talk about network effect, but I would make the case that Bitcoin is the Coca-Cola of the digital world, and it has distribution. It has distribution in Africa, in Australia, in the United States. It has distribution on the moon. It has distribution everywhere. And so that's the powerhouse. And I would try to appeal to that nature in him. With Bill Gates, I would say it's going to help everybody get a vaccine. And don't worry. I'm just kidding. But yeah,
that's a good one.
Hopefully they understand my point, is that you really have to appeal to what does that person care about, and how does Bitcoin satisfy that need for them?
Well, Brian, this is a follow-up to that, because then the person says, well, do you think that perhaps these guys are actually secretly stacking Bitcoin? They just don't tell anybody.
I don't know.
Maybe.
I think that there's, so clearly like BlackRock was doing that. We were saying that for years. Like, I bet BlackRock's, they're poo-pooing it publicly, but then they're buying it. I mean, clearly they must have been buying it publicly or privately, and then as soon as they could buy it publicly, they've been buying more Bitcoin than anybody else. So I assume they had been doing that before. Warren Buffett Bill Gates and Peter Schiff. Well, Peter Schiff does have some Bitcoin. He's
Is it
even
through his wife?
said,
Is that right?
what's that, Peter Schiff?
Is it through his wife?
Oh yeah, I believe it's through his wife, and his son has it, which it wouldn't be his. But then he's had a bunch donated to him, and he's
Oh, I
even
see.
sold gold for Bitcoin. He claims that they've always liquidated the Bitcoin, but they try to get some of that Bitcoin share, and they say, hey, Bitcoiners, come buy some gold from us. So I would imagine that he has some Bitcoin. I don't think he's stupid enough. He's the one guy in that group that I think actually has Bitcoin at like a meaningful amount. I genuinely believe Warren Buffett doesn't have it because he always says he doesn't invest outside of his core competency, what he understands, and I don't think he understands Bitcoin. And Bill Gates, I think, is fundamentally opposed to Bitcoin. I also think that Bill Gates, if he thought he could exert any power over it, I think that he would be buying Bitcoin. I actually
He'd be
think he's
all
probably
in.
more likely to buy like Ethereum or something that's proof of stake, so that he could use that influence over the network.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you, Brian. Second one, what advice do you have for parents who want to raise financially sovereign and Bitcoin literate young men and women? And let me just put something in there. I actually just saw recently, Brian, on a social that Indonesia was teaching Bitcoin within their school curriculum. Right? We don't even
Really?
have that. We don't have that in Australia.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I have a friend who lives in Indonesia. He's an American guy. I'm going to ask him. He's a Bitcoin advocate. So I didn't realize that. That's interesting. Um, I've heard, and this might be just hearsay, but supposedly there's studies that support that if you have parents who have their children do chores, that's one of the highest associations with success in the future. And so if you're a parent that's having your children do chores, you're already giving them a leg up. I would say just pay them for those chores in Bitcoin. There's nothing that orange pills somebody better than holding Bitcoin. I tell people all the time, if I'm speaking at a conference, like, what's the best way to orange pill somebody? Because, you got this book, Bitcoin Evangelism. I'm like, I'm going to convince you to not buy my book right now because I'm going to tell you the easiest way to orange pill somebody is have them download a Lightning wallet and just send them 1,000 sats. You'll do two things. One, they'll see it work in real time. So they're like, wow, that's literally all it took because I was making it to be this abstract thing in my head. Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense to me. And then two, they're no longer an other. When somebody's a non-Bitcoiner, they're the other. You're the Bitcoiner and you're this crazy guy, and I'm the guy that's reasonable. I'm not into Bitcoin. Well, you just sent me Bitcoin. Well, now I'm a Bitcoiner, I guess. And so we're kind of on the same team.
We're all in.
That same thing happens with kids. And once your kids have their Bitcoin, they're gonna keep an eye on it like we do. My kids ask me all the time, anytime Bitcoin hits a new all-time high, hey, can I see my spreadsheet to see how much money I have? And then two, I give them tasks. We homeschool our children. Like one of our school tasks was, hey, what's the best way if 12 words secures your seed phrase? We're going to do a school project today. Who can come up with the most creative way to secure their seed phrase? Those types of things are fun and they're practical lessons for their kids. And I'll tell you what, my kids came up with some really good ones that I didn't even think of. So they're
And you
sometimes
were
their
like, you're a
minds,
genius.
yeah. Sometimes their minds just work better than ours. But they then have
Yeah.
buy-in. They've now they've gone through the steps themselves. So I would say that the personal responsibility of chores and then paying for those chores in sound money. And when they see that their money goes up in value over time, it's going to convince. My kids have been stacking Bitcoin for 2 or 3 years now, and they're richer than all of their friends. Like
How old are they, Brian?
my oldest are 11. I have two. My son's adopted, so I have a daughter and son who are both 11, down to
Okay.
7 years old. And even my 7-year-old has some Bitcoin. I mean, none of their friends are have anywhere close to the amount of money they have, and they know that. They know that they're richer. They don't brag about it or anything like that. They don't talk about money with their friends other
They
than.
keep their 7-figure stash secret.
But it's pretty.
Don't tell anyone,
It's
kids.
pretty crazy for my kids to be like, yeah, I realize I have a lot of money. I don't think I thought if I had, when I was 10 years old, if I had $13, I'm like, well, I know I can buy this, or I'm going to save up $60 and buy a video game. My kids, I ask them all the time. I try to tempt them. I say, yesterday we were riding mountain bikes and my one daughter probably could use a new bike. I said, you can afford a new bike. I mean, you'd have a lot of money left over. She goes, no, I'm going to ride this bike so I can keep my Bitcoin.
Oh, is that right? How awesome is that? I actually take my kids. We collect cans and bottles at home. We can take them down to a local depot, and we get like 10 cents a bottle,
Yeah.
right?
Oh
And
my
so
gosh.
those funds actually then go into. I transfer it into Bitcoin,
That's brilliant.
and they have their own sort of separate wallet to do that.
That's
And now they
brilliant.
tease me about Bitcoin. You know you've made a difference when they're teasing you about Bitcoin.
Right.
Brian, what do you think is the biggest threat to Bitcoin adoption today from within or outside the ecosystem?
I think it's people's resistance to spending Bitcoin. I agree. I'm not a big fan of Jack Dorsey, to be honest. But he has said something that I do agree with. He said something to the effect of, somebody asked him, what does a future look like where Bitcoin has not won? And I think it's a future where we have failed to accept Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. I don't think it's the only thing we need to focus on. There's lots of good things happening. I think it's going to happen in a natural progression. And positive things are happening in terms of taxes with capital gains getting removed on Bitcoin in certain places. And so that will stimulate economies and stuff. But I do agree that it would be amiss for us to not have a future where we could spend Bitcoin. Because think about it. If tyranny reigns and we don't have, you could have $1 billion of Bitcoin, but if you have no one who you know that you can buy things from in Bitcoin, what good is that? Because if the government's running everything and the only place you can go cash it out is on an exchange, you were at the beck and call of the government under which you can cash that Bitcoin out. So just as a form of anti-fragility, I would say have some places where you could go spend some Bitcoin if you needed to.
Brian, that's absolutely awesome. Now, I'm going to have to wrap up the episode, but just please tell us where you mentioned the book Parallel. Now, that's how long has that been out for?
A little over a year. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the next one to get. We can start pushing that one. I'm still going to stand by my words and say Bitcoin Evangelism is the one to start with, and then we're going to move to Parallel after that. And of course, Brian, you mentioned about the Orange Pill app. Yeah, I'm on the Orange Pill app. I've been pushing that out to my community as well, so that's awesome.
Appreciate it.
Ryan, I'm gonna wrap it up with you and say thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Crypto Collective, and look forward to seeing you next time.
Matthew, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to Crypto Collective. If you've enjoyed this episode, the best way to show your support is to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcast or Spotify, and make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss an episode. You can also find more of me at I'm Matthew Fraser on all social media platforms.